How often have you started a project, idea, because it excited you, it inspired you to start something new? Something you wanted to create that was completely your own, and it made you feel like there was a spark all of a sudden that had been ignited inside of you that you probably hadn't felt in a very long time, only to lose the desire for it over time. And today, we're talking about how you can ignite your creativity, what to do when you lose momentum to create, and a few rituals that can help you stay consistent with your creative process. All right, so let's get into it. Welcome to the Main Lore podcast. I am your host, Laura, and this is episode 35. So thank you for being here. Now, think about it. Anything in life that asks you to put one and two together usually requires some form of creativity. We don't usually think about it that way because when you're getting dressed in the morning, for example, you're exercising your creative spark. Especially when you match, your green shirt with light blue pants. But, okay, I'm exaggerating. But some may say you probably can't dress. But I would probably say that it's your form of expression. And it is all yours. Yes, all yours to keep. So when you think about creativity, what exactly is it? According to philosopher Kant, creativity requires something to be both noble in nature and valuable. He argued that nonsense can be noble and therefore cannot be considered creative because it provides no value. When you think about that banana that was taped to the wall, right? Is it a noble thing? Was it original? Absolutely. It's something no one ever thought to do at an art gallery before, at least to my knowledge. Or was it valuable? Well, most of us would probably agree that absolutely not, it's not. But someone out there decided or found it to be valuable enough to them to the point where they would spend millions of dollars to acquire it. And you could say the same thing about yard sales when people decide to throw out their junk. They just put it out there in the yard and people just go around looking for things to buy at a ridiculously low price. But sometimes you end up finding some great gems in there. When they say art is in the eye of the beholder, it is because while there are different techniques and styles in which we can probably create art, at the end of the day, creativity can seem either cutting edge or pretty basic, depending on who you ask. Now, sometimes value is determined by the level of exposure and the demand for it, but that's another topic in and of itself. I say all of this to say that your creativity has no bounds, regardless of who you are and the resources that you may have at your fingertips. You too can be creative. So there is no barrier to entry when it comes to creativity. I would even argue that creativity tends to be more prevalent when you have almost zero resources because you have to become inventive and innovative in the way that you see the world and in the way that you solve problems. So I remember going to, I went to the Dominican Republic and I saw people carrying portable Wi-Fi's in their pockets or, in their purses. And I was like, wait, I've never seen this in the US. Where have I been? You know what I mean? But of course, for us, we've never had the need for it because it's always provided to us wherever we go. But for them, that was something that was unique of a solution simply because obviously you can't just find Wi-Fi everywhere out there. And to me, that was great, right? It all came about because of the lack of resources. And because of that, a solution came about. And that's what I mean by creativity being fostered by a lack of resources, even boredom. I remember when my daughter was, maybe 5 or 6, and all the kids were, the parents were buying them iPads. And for some reason, I just refused to buy her an iPad. I don't know, I was just so against it. And she had like this little DS, and that's all she ever got. After that, she's like, oh, I'm bored. She would tell me that she would get bored all the time. And what I ended up doing was I bought her a blank notebook or, those drawing pads and some crayons and pencils. And I said, hey, go have at it. And throughout the years, she became so good at it that she even ended up having, a good following on social media, and she even get paid for her art. So again, boredom is so important when it comes to having the ability to be creative and allowing yourself to get there. So yes, creativity is everywhere, and it can be applied to a person, a process, or a product. Chefs are creative. They cook literally art on a plate, not only visually, while also creating these culinary palettes that are delightful to your taste buds. Designers, they find ways to incorporate fabric that feels exquisite to the touch, to emphasize elegance and style, also adding eccentric yet carefully curated colors that feel uniformed as a form of expression. In music, the rhythm and flow of a song can stay with us forever from the minute that you hear a single note. Think about your favorite song. The minute you hear that one single note, you already know what it is. You get excited, right? That's what creativity is. And it's not just in the arts. When you think of STEM fields like science, engineering, they also require creativity. You're essentially looking at a problem from a different point of view and then taking on the challenge to solve it. You can take something old and make it new again, like the evolution of cars or phones. That takes creativity and also a little imagination. Oh, well, maybe a lot. When you think about the rotary phones and where we are now, that takes a lot of creativity. Let's be honest. And the key is to find something you're passionate about, something you feel has purpose. Because purpose is what keeps us interested and engaged in anything that we do so that we can make it better. The beginning stages of the creative process usually feels exciting and new, but with time, we tend to lose momentum. And if we stay overly focused on that idea or project, all of a sudden, everything starts looking the same, right? Novel ideas are hard to come by. And then because of that, your motivation disappears. But the good news is that keeping your momentum doesn't come from doing a lot, but by doing something consistently. There's something called the progress principle, and it means that small progress can boost motivation and emotional engagement. So for example, if you know people who create art or music, you'll notice that sometimes they'll work on, the same piece of music, the same art for a very long time. They'll do a little bit, step away, take a break, go back to it, step away again, work on it some more, scrap it, start over. You know what I mean? It's a process and it takes time. Anything that you deem valuable to you, it's going to take time to create. So the key is to continue to work on it until you feel it's complete. And sometimes, if you're a perfectionist, you're probably not ever going to feel like it's complete. But you have to set boundaries for yourself, okay? So how much of yourself can you give to it today? Maybe today you could give 20%. Maybe tomorrow you add another 10, then another 30, right? Until you reach that 100%. So write that one sentence, if you're writing a book, and it will eventually become a chapter. Then you have a book eventually. You can sketch one idea and expand onto it to create even more ideas. You can record a melody and start with a chorus. And now it's easier to put the other pieces together. What's going to be the first verse and the second? Think about people who write jingles. I know we don't really watch TV that much anymore. Well, now we have ads and streaming channels, unfortunately, right? But when you hear those jingles, people who write those jingles, they spend a lot of time probably in the shower singing it along and thinking about it. And probably they hear a noise or a sound in the street and then they incorporate it into the jingle. It's a process that takes time. Small steps don't break your momentum. They build onto it until the final product is complete. Now, this might sound counterintuitive, but one of the best ways to stay consistent is to make it almost too easy to start. So there's a method called the minimum viable effort. It works because your brain tends to resist big, overwhelming tasks. So remember how I mentioned in my 1-year anniversary how I was thinking, wow, 500 episodes seems so daunting, but I decided to split them into pieces, right? 20 episodes at a time. And now I'm in my 35th episode. So your rule should be, I need to start no matter what. You're not setting these huge expectations on yourself. You're simply allowing yourself the grace to simply begin. And then once you begin, you've already won half the battle. There are people who never begin. They never start. They just have it in their brain, think about it, never do anything with it. It doesn't matter how great the idea is, they just never do it. So you're already ahead of the pack. Think about your capacity and go from there. Remember that it's about making small continuous progress. Now, when it comes to rituals, it's a great way to stick to your creative process. They're like little signals and nudges to your brain that say, hey, 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 hey. It's time to create now. You don't have to make it complicated. And when you think of rituals, it could potentially look like just setting the mood, lighting a candle, depending on what you're creating, obviously, but lighting a candle before you start, creating a playlist, that gets the momentum going, it pumps you up to create. People do it when they go to work out. They create playlists so that they can listen to it at the gym. Same concept, why not do it for other things? You can even find a space in your home that is dedicated solely for whatever it is that you want to create. So that anytime you see the spot, you say to yourself, oh, wow, I have a creative spark. I need to go to my spot. And the space is always there, inviting you to come in and create. So these small routines improve your focus and reduce that resistance that you feel because you've mentally prepared yourself to begin the creative process. So it will eventually feel familiar. And one thing that I can say that you can also do is putting it on the calendar. When you're scheduling these rituals, you're not going to put, starting chapter 1 of my book. You have to go all the way out, right? Like you have to be completely, I want to say unhinged, but say, you know what? Starting the first chapter of my New York Times bestselling book, who cares? Is it going to get there? Who knows? But I feel like all the books are New York Times bestsellers, it seems. Why not yours? So get into that groove, get into that mentality where this is my bestseller that I'm creating. And as soon as you get to it, you're going to get even more excited. And you probably already know this, but what you consume does affect what and how much you create. Your brain is always taking an input, so you're constantly consuming things that are overwhelming, distracting, and overstimulating, So it becomes harder to produce anything meaningful because your brain is already overstimulated. So in addition to implementing small rituals, make sure that you're creating space for it. Eliminate the unnecessary noise, give your brain room for your own thoughts to expand and your imagination to wander. Boosting your creativity doesn't just require time, right? You need breathing room. You need to let things come to you and let those ideas come to the surface. In order for your brain to burst with new ideas, you're going to need a little inspiration. And this is similar to something called behavioral activation, where taking action can actually create that emotional state you're waiting for. You can monitor how you feel when you're in the process of creating and look at the other factors like the time of day, even the day of the week. So if you're doing something on the busiest day of the week for you, right? Like if it's a Tuesday and you've overwhelmed because you've done so much, chances are you've overdone it already and your energy is going to be depleted. You're going to be drained by the time you start, and it's not going to motivate you to start. You can try a different day when it's quieter and less stressful. Remember that your goal is to focus on creating when your headspace is free from as much distraction as possible. And something else you can try is associating your creative time with another activity. So for example, maybe you love to write. So why not find time to decompress by going to the park? While you're there, you can dedicate some time to write down your thoughts. You're not only making time to get out and enjoy nature, but you're also looking forward to writing. Record your ideas while you're going on a walk. You can always organize them later when you get home. So, how many times have you thought of something while buying groceries or cleaning the house or doing laundry? Don't let those ideas fly away. So the point is to start and allow space for motivation to flow. You're allowed to enjoy your creativity. And not everything has to be productive or the perfect time. Trust me, if you try to get creative while stressed and tired, you're going to start associating that creative process with that. And then it's going to feel like a chore. Now, if you're tired, you're like, oh my God, I have to go and create, I have to go paint, you're not going to be inspired. And you don't want to do that. Take a nap if you're tired, go eat something, drink some water, whatever you need to help get you into a flow state, do it. And sometimes creativity is just a process that takes time to develop. You have to give yourself space to explore what is possible. Try different concepts and ideas and see what works for you. Leave the pressure out of it. Take your time, do it right. You can do it, baby. Anyway, I think I'm getting a little too excited. Of course, be playful with it. Don't take things too seriously. The whole point of creating is for you to have those light bulb moments because it keeps you excited to come back to do it again and again. And let's be real, there will be days when you're going to fall off. There will be days where you don't want to show up, where the momentum feels like poof, gone, but that's okay. The key is to not focus on perfection. It's returning to the thing that you're passionate about. So yeah, creativity is not a one-time event. It's something you come back to again and again. Some days it's going to feel easy, some days it's going to feel like the most amazing feeling, right? Other days it's going to feel like you just can't give anymore. But every time you show up, you're working towards building something meaningful and valuable. And that deserves your time and effort. It doesn't matter how big or small it may be. So today, think about something you like to begin creating. And don't overcomplicate it. Just light the candle, open the notebook, take a small step to show up and be creative. And trust that as long as you stay consistent, the little spark will turn into fireworks. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the Main Lore podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please go ahead and share it with your favorite person or like it or, whatever. And yeah, please stay tuned for episode 36. Again, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. Until next time, take care. Bye.